Hey everyone, welcome back to the Proverbial Masterminds.
Yes, we are trying something a little bit different today because Zoom is not cooperating with us.
No, it is not,
Um, yeah, but
but that's
welcome
okay.
back. Welcome back. I'm Erin, your Hustle with Heart coach. This is my sister in Christ, Dr. Sherry, and we are just two daughters of the King minding the Master's wisdom on the Proverbial Masterminds. And we have been walking through the book of Proverbs, one verse a day, since November of
Yep.
2020. So we are in chapter 22, and I just can't even believe that we're so far beyond like the middle of the book, and we've been talking about these wise sayings.
Yeah.
So, yeah, here we are.
We are talking about wise sayings.
Wise.
Um, we've got, we're only for those of you joining us for the first time, we are pre-recording today, but we are the premise is a verse a day, right? So we read a verse a day and then we come back together at the end of the week and talk about it. But today we're only doing 6 verses. We're
Mhm.
reviewing 6 verses. Next week we'll be reviewing 8. And the only reason for that is because it made sense contextually to not split up. So a lot of these sayings
Mhm.
of the wise are in pairs. So in 2 verses is like one saying. So we didn't want to split up the pairs.
That's right.
So
Right.
that's why 6 this week, 8 next week. So we're still on track for 1 a day.
Right? I mean, listen, we're applying some wisdom for you.
That's right. That's
I
right.
love it. All right. Do you want to read this week?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I'll read. And so we're going to read, we are closing out chapter 22 today. And we're going to be reading chapter 22, verses 24 to 29.
Mhm.
And I am reading from the New King James Version. Just
Okay.
if, that's if you want to know. So here we go. Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go, lest you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul. Do not be one of those who shakes hands in a pledge, one of those who is surety for debts. If you have nothing with which to pay, why should he take away your bed from under you?
Mm.
Do not remove the ancient landmark which your fathers have set. Do you see a man who excels in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before unknown men.
Mm. Good
And that's it.
stuff.
Yeah.
Good. 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 I just want to start by saying I'm really glad that you recommended that we do it this way because I feel like you said, it gives us that
Yeah.
context. And just to remind everyone, I mean, the book of Proverbs is full of wisdom,
Mhm.
obviously. And there are so many of these kinds of sayings. And it's always fascinating to me that number one, Solomon reiterates so many things because, like, God knew that
Yeah.
we would need reminder.
Right, right, right.
And that even though there's ancient language here, that it's still so applicable to today.
Hmm.
So that is one of the things that I'm loving. And so just starting in 24 and 25
Yeah.
together, in the New Living Translation, don't befriend angry people. Well, right? Like that seems like such common sense, but do we realize that it's common sense, but it's from here, right?
Yeah. Well,
Or
and we are the company we keep, right?
a
That's what
100%.
this is saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to this time, I've been reading a lot in the prophets, and I'm finishing up a section of Jeremiah to Ezekiel. And over again, God is saying to his prophets, like, tell the people this. They have
Right, 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 right.
and because they're surrounded by people who are not obeying God, who are
Mhm,
not following God's
mhm,
word. And what is happening? They're learning to be like them. And guess what
mhm.
that does? It's endangering their souls. It's endangering their lives. So this is very practical from that time.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
because
It's
it's
so good. And I want to share with you. I'm looking on my phone here. How do I get to my story? Um, okay. You are the books you read, the
mm,
movies you watch, the people you spend time with, the conversations you engage in. Choose wisely what you feed your mind.
mm.
right? We're all, and actually, speaking of that, I had a little conviction. I've been focusing on listening to the Lord lately. That it, which is really interesting when you feel like he's silent. But anyway, but he's telling me things that I'm not asking him.
Yeah.
And one of the things most recently was like, stop watching that show.
Mm,
I mean, and it wasn't audible, people. It wasn't a booming voice from the heavens, right? It was just a very gentle, hey, stop watching that.
yeah.
So I, at first, admittedly, I was like, well, why? And then I just shut it off.
Right.
I'm not gonna argue with that
That's
anyway.
right.
So I say that to say this show, it's not necessarily wrong, but there wasn't really anything godly about it either,
Mm, mm, mhm.
right? And there was a lot of arguing and fighting in it, right? So coming back to, I
That's
promise
right.
this is relevant.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why the Lord pricked my spirit. If you watch people who are irrational or angry, even just watching them might give you a subliminal message to respond that way in the future. So maybe you just don't watch that.
Right. Yeah.
So I shut it off, and it's weird. It's a weird feeling because it's like, well, now I don't know how that ends, but I'm okay with it.
Right. You interrupted my binging, Lord.
I
Yes. Yes, he has. I love that. I love it. I love it.
know. Isn't that great?
All right, what do you have for 26 and 27?
All right. So do not be one of those who shakes hands in a pledge, one of those who is surety for debts. If you have nothing with which to pay, why should he take away your bed from under you? So basically, um, it's a little difficult to understand in this version. I think it's easier in the New Living Translation. Can you read that really
Yeah,
quickly?
absolutely. So it says, don't agree to guarantee another person's debt or put up security for someone else. If you can't pay it, even your bed will be snatched from under you.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
So, this is why I think we've talked about in the past, like, don't like loan people money, just give it under the assumption that you're not getting it back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But this is talking about like um promising to pay somebody else's debt to a third party.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I think this is talking about.
Yeah.
Um so be really careful about that. I mean, I know it's interesting because I mean my parents have co-signed for stuff for me in the past.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
that,
I know
right?
mine have too. And as my husband and I have been through Financial Peace University and we teach it at our church, like that is definitely one of the things that, Dave Ramsey would say, like, never co-sign for your children. And um, what we have to remember is like God does not want us to be indebted,
Mhm.
right? The borrower is the slave to the debtor, and we know that.
Right.
Um, and there are times in our world that we do those things,
That's right.
but I think it's also coming into a situation like this to be aware that what what is going back to the last two verses, what is the character of the person that
Mhm.
you're covering for, if you will, and being aware of all of the situation around that and what could
Yeah.
happen if they don't pay. Like when I was in college, my dad co-signed for a car for me.
Right.
And um, when I was 23 years old, the car got repossessed because I did not pay the car payment. And I already had a sort of tumultuous relationship with my dad. But then of course my dad's like, you need to pay your bill, right?
Right.
So it's just being aware of what
Mhm.
those consequences are, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do the thing, but do it under the assumption that the worst might happen. The other person
Absolutely.
may not pay and you are left holding the bill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, interestingly, I'm gonna share this. I don't think my daughter will ever see this, but so since 2020, my daughter had 2 roommates. She had her freshman year roommate and then her roommate's boyfriend. and they were all friends, and then they weren't, right?
Yeah.
And the boyfriend was in the middle of the two. So again, be careful who you're surrounding yourself with. Well, in June, she found out that they split all the utilities, and some people had some things in, she had electric in her name, and he had gas in his
Yep.
name. Sherry is aware of this conversation. So in June, while she was away doing a show in New York, she found out that he had not paid the gas bill since September. That's like 9 months, right? So again, it's like, okay, what is that agreement that you're making with people
Yeah.
in any situation, in a work situation, in a living situation, and being aware of what those consequences could be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so, again, this is about partnership,
Yes. Yes.
right? The first two verses are about partnership, partnering. Whatever you spend your time on or your money with, this is partnering. So just be really cautious about who you're partnering with. I thought about this the other day about I'm seeing some things. Oh, how do I say this? Very often there will be a new pastor that kind of not very often. There'll be a new pastor that comes on the scene and I feel like they are vibrant and refreshing and truth speaking and all of the things. And then suddenly I start to see them looking like non-truth speaking
Mm, mm,
pastors.
mhm.
I
I get
actually just unfollowed one the other day. So that's a form of, who we follow and who we read and
Yes.
it's a form of partnership.
Yep.
And it wasn't necessarily that this person was saying anything wrong. It just seemed to get further and further away from the truth of God and more enticing to the ego of the human.
Mm, mm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a you're amazing, like a motivational speaker,
Right.
more than a truth teller.
Yeah. And along those lines, this is exactly why we personally need to know the Lord,
Yeah, that's right. And
that we
partner with
personally,
him.
right, and partner with him,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Because you could look at a pastor or a speaker, and Sherry and I both speak as well, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you could look at that and but the point is, like, what is your personal
Yeah.
relationship with the
Yep.
Lord? Yeah. Ooh, that's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
so just I think we just really need to be aware of what and who, not just who, but what we're partnering with, like with
Yes.
the TV show, like who and what are we partnering with?
Yeah.
I'm becoming increasingly aware of that as I listen to God's wisdom.
Yeah. Right. Right. Okay. So in 28 and 29 in the New Living Translation, it's and I get where Solomon's going, right? Because if you think back,
Now, hang on, did you see these two as together? Because I didn't. I saw them
I
as
didn't
separate.
either. I
Okay,
didn't I think I just said them together because we were
because we're pairing. Okay.
yeah. Um in 28,
Yeah.
wait, am I in the right? Hold on.
Yeah,
In
this is about the ancient
Yeah, this is the ancient landmarks. And so if you remember, there were several times throughout the Old Testament that God instructed his people to leave some kind of a landmark. Like, when they crossed the Jordan, um,
Mhm.
the Lord instructed Joshua to have them stack up 12 stones, right?
Monument, an
Monument.
Ebenezer.
Right. Right. And so in the New Living Translation, just to sort of make it a little more understandable, it says, don't cheat your neighbor by moving the ancient boundary markers that were
Mm,
set by previous generations. So
mm.
I have an interesting take on this. And
Okay.
it kind of, to me, relates a bit to the idea of train up a child.
Yep.
And also, in Deuteronomy, the the words that the Israelites were instructed, that they were, praying that same thing in morning and night and the same verses and, that sort of thing. Like, don't try to, I think it can be easy in today's world to expect people to move forward and get with the times and be modern. But when it comes to our belief and our partnership with the Lord, like, that is boundless, that is timeless.
Right, right.
So I don't know. I kind of was going in those directions as I was reading it. How about you?
Yeah. Well, I think I think we can look at it as a spiritual parallel and as a practical application. So a practical application is like you were talking about, looking back and the generations speaking to the generations with the various things that God has given them to speak to, the evidence of that. But also you know, which your fathers have set, like,
Mm,
don't go beyond
mm,
the parameters
yeah.
that the Lord has set.
Mm,
So that's a parallel. He's our spiritual father, right?
right.
So don't go beyond the parameters. I'm actually writing a blog post that'll go out tomorrow about this thing that I learned while walking my dog Luca. So when I walk her, she pulls. She's a constant puller, like away from me.
Mm-hmm.
She's constantly pulling away from me. And what I've found is if, like, say we're walking along the road, if I have her in between me and the grass, so that like
Right.
I'm closer
You're
to the
close
middle
to
of
the
the
road.
road,
Yep.
right? She doesn't pull.
Mm.
She walks. She's got a boundary.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
this boundary there, that right? But when I'm beside the grass and she's beside me and she's got this wide open road,
Mhm.
she pulls and she starts to veer away
Yeah.
from. So anyway, that's, God, he gives us a path,
Mm.
and when we stick
Yes.
with him, when we
Yeah,
let him cover us, when we let him surround us, we don't veer off.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Isn't that good?
I know you've talked about this before, but there is going to be a book about, like, what you've learned from your dog, what God
Oh
has
my
taught you through
gosh.
your dogs.
He teaches me a lot through them.
All right, 29. What do you have for that?
Well, 29, I think it appeals to I think what's beautiful about this is it appeals to our human pride,
Yes.
okay? But it also is humbling,
Mm,
which I think is the Lord's intent, right?
mhm.
Not to appeal to our pride, but to be humbling.
Yeah.
So, do you see a man or woman who excels in her work? He or she will stand before kings. He or she will not stand before unknown men.
Mm,
Um, what I love about this is that it's God who positions us. So it's
yes.
God who delivers our gifts. It's us who says, "Yes, Lord, use me.
Mm,
Send me. Here I am.
yeah.
Send me." So when there's that alignment, that partnership of I acknowledge this gift is from you, send me to use it as you would have me use it, not as I would have me use it, but as you would have me use it, then you put me in places I could never put myself.
Ooh, that is so good. Wait, you need to say that again.
Oh no.
I acknowledge this gift is from you.
Yes. And then I say, okay, here I am now, use it for what you want to use it for, then he can position us in places that we could never have positioned ourselves in.
Yes. Yes. Mm,
To
that's
his glory. Remember, this is not, going back to that, like, for example, this one pastor that I heard, he's like, God's going to put you in, in front of your enemies and blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, yes, Psalm 23 does say God prepares a table for me in the presence of my enemies.
mhm,
But
mhm.
it's not so we can feel prideful.
Right.
And in fact, I don't even think if we're humbly, seek justice, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. If we're doing that, I don't even think that we would be in a heart position to recognize that, haha, look at me, you enemy.
Yeah.
Do you
No.
see what
Yeah.
I'm saying? I
Yes.
don't.
Totally.
That's not where our hearts would be. We're
No.
just there, and like this says, we are just standing before, we are aligned, we are perfectly partnered with him, and we're just going where he leads us, and he leads us into great things, not for our glory, but for his.
Yes. Yeah. And I question that. I haven't dug into that scripture, um, like deep and what that means there, that he will, put you at the table before your enemies or what have you. But I don't know that I don't believe, based on God's character,
Yeah.
that is why he does that.
He doesn't want us doing, the
No,
thumb in our nose at people. That's
no,
that's
no. Like, is he putting us there, first of all, in the presence of our enemies to show us, like, we can't handle that in our own power, but only in his, and
and I'm fully protected in the
fully
presence
protected,
of adversity.
fully
Yeah.
protected. That's right. And how do we use those kinds of moments, because they happen,
Yeah.
to glorify him, to reflect
That's
Jesus?
right. That's right, because that's right. Yep,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
good.
Oh, I love where that went.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that's
That's
done. Yeah.
good. I
So,
love it.
it's not that we will stand and we will be elevated and we will be increased. No, it's always, always so that God is elevated and increased, and he makes a way. This is
Mm,
what he's saying here. He makes a way where we could not possibly do that. And
yeah.
not a way for us to do what we wanna do, but
Yeah.
a way for him to do what he wants to do in us.
Yeah. Yeah. And our challenge is
Mhm.
always, like, are we willing to hang on to his grip and not our own, right? And
Mhm.
be so aligned with abiding, that whatever the outcome is,
Yeah.
we know that it's for our good and the good of the kingdom and to glorify him. And we're okay with it, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Hence why we need to study his wisdom.
We do.
All right, friends. That was good. Ooh, I
That's
love it.
good.
I love it. All right. So, next week we will also have a recording, because
Yep.
these Fridays we have some travel and some other things. But next week we are going to finish out. We're going to do 8 verses, as Sherry said. So we'll be finishing out chapter 22 with verse, or no,
Well, we
we'll be
finished
starting
chapter
20.
22 today. Yep.
Yes. So we're starting 23, and we'll be in the first 8 chapters of
Yep.
20. So follow
First
along.
8 verses.
First 8 verses, sorry. Um, I'm all over. Follow along, share with your friends, and comment, because we really want to know how this is sitting with you
Yeah.
too. Yeah. So if you're following, please watch and comment, because we want to hear your feedback as well. So
Yes.
with that, we will see you on the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Bye.